Viktor Frankl, the psychologist who famously survived 4 concentration camps, was someone intimately aware of the importance of meaning in life, the absence of which he saw as a larger social problem that he called the existential vacuum. Those within it experience the following. No instinct tells him what he has to do, and no tradition tells him what he ought to do. Sometimes he does not even know what he wishes to do. Instead, he either wishes to do what other people do, conformism, or he does what others wish him to do, totalitarianism. This diagnosis of collective nihilism is something that appears in the work of many thinkers. Usually it involves a general sense of unfulfillment, something that goes beyond mere unhappiness. A society may be directed towards a great deal of pleasure, or its population may work long hours. Nonetheless, there is something that many philosophers and psychologists point to as fundamentally absent in such societies, where Frankl calls it the existential vacuum, the cognitive psychologist John Vervaeke calls it the crisis of meaning. For Vervaeke, he draws comparisons to the hopeless and mindless population of Western societies, and an obsession with zombies. Zombies, meandering aimlessly, mindless, and without a home, reflect some of our own anxieties about the current state of things. Zombies are without a place to be, subsisting day to day with no greater aims. Importantly, they represent something called domicide, the killing of a sense of home. Like the zombies, we have little sense of home, both within communities and even within ourselves. We have become, in a sense, alienated. Alienation is another word for describing this meaning crisis. We feel in some sense separate from something that we feel we should belong to. As one thinker puts it, alienation is a relationship of non-relationship. We are more closed off from the world, from ourselves and those around us. This is in part due to the pressures of modernization. Modernization requires greater and greater speed in order to be as efficient as possible. According to Harmut Rosa, this time pressure is felt at all levels. For the wealthy, it is internally imposed, where time is seen as a precious resource that should not be wasted. For the average worker, the pressure comes externally, where bosses and contracts force one into a constant state of instrumentality in order to be as efficient as possible. And for those who are unemployed or function outside of society, the very lack of time pressure is seen as something wrong, and so they have the pressure to somehow obtain time pressure. As Rosa writes, acceleration is a totalitarian force where pressure is felt at all levels. This instrumental relation to ourselves and the world is, according to thinkers such as Rosa, the cause of alienation. We don't have the time or resources to develop bonds or deep connections, or even find what we wish to do for ourselves. And so we fall into the traps of totalitarianism and conformism that Frankl warned us about. We may be living meaningless lives, but hey, it's a living. Rosa asks an important question. What would a non-alienated way of life look like? His answer is found in his idea of resonance. Resonance is a specific relationship between you, the subject, and the world, the object, that is reciprocal and leads to mutual transformation. It is experienced in the feeling of answering a call in some sense. We would live our lives open and in the hopes of being affected or moved, going beyond mere ideas of the good life that can appear as simple bucket lists of what exactly you want to do. Resonance permits destabilization and dynamic playfulness that leave any sort of predictability out of it. Too abstract? Though Rosa does promote art and ritual as spaces of potential resonance, I think returning to cognitive psychology here might give us a clearer idea of how to build resonant societies. Vervaeke argues that we are suffering a wisdom famine in the West, resulting in the aforementioned crisis of meaning. Here, wisdom ties closely to Rosa's notion of resonance. As Vervaeke argues, wisdom means dealing with the things that cut us off from connectedness, which is ultimately the meaning of life. Meaning in life for Vervaeke and Rosa is found in the dynamic between the agent and arena. It is in collision or in play with one another where we find meaning. Vervaeke notes that our agentic relationship with our arena, the world, has become far too reliant on information and the sorts of knowledge that are independent of connection and relatedness. This is where the crisis of meaning emerges. For Vervaeke, there are three other types of knowledge that we lose out on when we solely focus on data and information. There is, for example, participatory knowledge that lets us know how to be with others. There is also perspectival knowledge that lets us know what it is like to be here and now. And there is procedural knowledge that lets us know how to do something. These three forms of knowledge, if engaged in consistently, should leave us a little less alienated and a little more likely to experience that sweet, sweet resonance. Yes, on an individual level, this does amount to touching grass and going outside. But on a social level, we should also push for greater urban design, the designation of more third spaces, lower work hours, and a promotion of arts and culture. This is a two-way process in the hopes of making happier, more meaningful lives for everyone. We are here for a very short time. Why waste it in alienation?